Hey everyone, it's Boogeyman Ben. Hope everyone's doing well and everyone had a nice week. Happy Friday to everybody. Today's video is going to be a little bit different from my normal videos. It's not going to be focusing on anything in the horror genre or horror related. I'm actually going to be talking about the Die Hard movie series. With the 5th installment opening this week, A Good Day to Die Hard, I thought it was important to talk about the most iconic action film series from my generation, and I think going into this generation. I mean, you got 5 films over a 25-year period. John McClane is an iconic character. I think one of the coolest action heroes ever because he's just an everyman. But growing up, I mean, it was the Die Hard series, Lethal Weapon, and Beverly Hills Cop. And I just, wanted to talk about one of my favorite movie series of all time, and I thought what a better time to do it. And I have seen A Good Day to Die Hard, so I'll be talking about all 5 Die Hard films. So I hope everyone enjoys my retrospective of the Die Hard series. Stay tuned. Now, before I get into my review of the film series, I thought it was important to show off my NECA Cult Classics John McClane figure. They put this figure out in 2006, and I think it's a tremendous job. I mean, they really got his likeness down. The bullets on the ground here, you can see them very well, but just a great job on this figure. I've always been proud of this one. And they'd never re-released this one. They're starting to re-release a lot of these Cult Classics figures, and I've never heard about them re-releasing this one. The other thing I wanted to talk about was a comic series that came out by Boom Comics, and it was called Die Hard Year One. And it actually started in the story starts in 1976 when McClane is just starting his assignment as a beat cop. And it's a pretty good series. It only did 8 issues, but it was a good little comic book series that I really enjoyed. And they did a lot of good likenesses of a young Bruce Willis with long hair. But yeah, it was a really good comic series, and I wish it could have gone on longer because I thought it was a really interesting concept. But yeah, I don't know if people are aware of this series, but they sold out really quickly, so a lot of these, I don't know how easy they are to find. A few of them I got, there was optional covers. There had a couple different covers. So yeah, good series if you ever get a chance to pick it up. So let's start things off with the first Die Hard film. The film would come out in the summer of 1988, and it was directed by John McTiernan, who had previously done the film Predator. The film stars Bruce Willis as John McClane. It has Bonnie Bedelia as Holly Gennaro McClane, Reginald VelJohnson as Sergeant Al Powell, Paul Gleason as Deputy Chief Dwayne T. Robinson. You got William Atherton as Richard Thornburg, Hal Bochner as Harry Ellis, and of course the great Alan Rickman as Hans Gruber. And the screenplay was done by Jeb Stewart and Stephen E. D'Souza. Bruce Willis plays John McClane, a New York cop who is coming out to Southern California, Los Angeles, to meet with his estranged wife, who 6 months earlier had taken a job in Los Angeles and moved their family out to Los Angeles. He comes from New York. It's Christmas Eve. Goes to meet her at her place of business, which is the Nakatomi Corporation, Nakatomi Plaza. While he's there, the building is taken over by terrorists led by Hans Gruber, Alan Rickman's character. The source material for Die Hard was actually based on a book by Roderick Thorpe called Nothing Lasts Forever, which was a sequel to another book entitled The Detective, which in 1968 was made into a film starring Frank Sinatra. Bruce Willis was actually the 6th choice for the main character of John McClane. It originally went to Arnold Schwarzenegger, then Sylvester Stallone, then Burt Reynolds, then Richard Gere, then Harrison Ford, then Mel Gibson before Willis got it. Now, the first time I ever saw Die Hard was not in the movie theater. I actually saw it in 1989, so it was a year after it had been released in the theaters, and it was when it first premiered on HBO. I just remember the time my mom and I had just moved into our new house. It was the summertime, and I was unpacking and putting things away in the new house, and this film was going to premiere that night on HBO. And I remember I was excited for it. I knew Bruce Willis a little bit from Moonlighting, but it wasn't a show that I was interested in because I was a kid and just, but I always thought he was kind of funny in the scenes that I would see when my mom would watch the show. And there was just something about him I always thought was kind of cool and I was drawn to. So I was interested to see this film because I knew a lot of people had seen it. For some reason, I didn't see it in the summer the year prior. Which was kind of weird, but for some reason I just didn't see the film. But I remember the first time I saw Die Hard, and I was just completely blown away. And I was 15 when I saw it, and I remember I recorded it, and I just kept watching it. And I think it's Bruce Willis. I mean, he's just amazing as John McClane. He plays an everyman. He's just an everyday guy. He's a cop. He has a family. He's put into an extraordinary situation, and he reacts like a normal person would react. And I think that is what made the character so endearing and why he has been around for 25 years in films. Why there's been 4 sequels to this film. The action in this film is insane. There was no action films really like this in the 80s, in the late 80s. I mean, yes, Lethal Weapon had kind of pushed the book, but they had only made one Lethal Weapon by the time this had come out, and Lethal Weapon was nowhere near as hardcore as Die Hard was, in my opinion. As for the supporting cast, I've always been a fan of Bonnie Bedelia, going back to Salem's Lot. I thought she was great as McClane's wife. You really feel the chemistry with them, even though they have limited screen time together, but they really come off as a husband and wife that are having some problems, and I thought that was really displayed well, and she did a great job in the dramatic moments as well. I also really loved Reginald VelJohnson. This is before Family Matters and the whole Urkel thing that went kind of stupid, crazy. I never was really big into that show, but I really liked him as Al Palo. I mean, you really like that character, and him and Bruce Willis have tremendous chemistry, even though they're talking for the most part over a CB through the whole movie. Also, I mean, you can't say enough good things about Alan Rickman as Hans Gruber. I still think, throughout the entire series, he is the definitive villain in this series. Just a tremendous actor, and he just really brings this sinister vibe to the Hans character, but you like him. I mean, it's a weird dynamic. I still think it's one of the first times you really liked a villain just as much as you liked the hero. And like I said, the action in this film is insane. I mean, McClane goes through quite a bit in this film, from shootouts to falling down an elevator shaft to running over broken glass to having a shootout on the roof of the building to jumping off the building when there's an explosion. I mean, there's so many things that happen to him in this film, and you feel everything that happens to him because he's not Rambo, he's not Commando, he's not one of these bigger than life action stars at the time, which were Schwarzenegger and Stallone. He's just an everyday guy, so everything that happens to him, you really feel what he's going through. And I also think John McTiernan did a great job directing this film. I mean, he had done Predator, and I had seen that film by the time I had seen this, and I was a fan of that film, and I just think he does a tremendous job of having this. It's a gritty film. It's got a lot of realism in it, but it also has, I mean, a lot of this stuff, I mean, for people that are kind of like now complaining that as the series went on that the action got a little bit more cartoonish and over the top. I mean, it started from this, and back in the 80s, this was kind of over the top. There was no action films like this, so to see a man jump from a roof with a fire hose attached to him and be able to survive that was an impossible scene, but that's what I loved about the movies in the 80s and even to a lesser extent in the 90s, when people started getting a little bit more cynical, in my opinion. But you go to the movies to suspend disbelief a little bit. I mean, I don't want to go see a realistic action film because it would be boring. It would be over. And I think that, especially nowadays, people have gotten into the tendency of being so, everything has to be realistic. Like, could that really happen? So yeah, you can't say enough good things about Die Hard. I love this film. I love the Expendables films, and it's one of my favorite action movie series, favorite films. But the Die Hard films are just my favorite movies in terms of action. I love the series. I love this film. It's probably one of my favorite action films of all time, if not my favorite action film of all time. I mean, 10 out of 10, just love this film. There's nothing bad you can say about it. Just a great movie, great performances, great action, great direction, great music, just a tremendous film, and I love the character of John McClane. Best action hero ever.